Welcome to the first biannual Museum Design Summit. I'm Pamela Kelly. I'm the Vice President of Licensing, the licensing program for the Museum of New Mexico. We're thrilled you're here to see our fantastic museums. This feels really loud. Is it okay? Okay. And to listen to the great group of speakers we've assembled. It's our hope that by tomorrow afternoon, you leave here inspired and your design horizons broadened. We're grateful for our sponsors, for their support of the summit, and for their commitment to our design collaborations. I'd also like to thank the museums and their staff and my colleagues at the Museum of New Mexico Foundation for helping us put this fantastic event on. And I'd also like to introduce and thank a few key members of the Museum Design Summit team. And when I call your name, if you would stand up because people need to know who you are. Sarah Calawertz, there she is. Sarah works with me, and she's the organizational and graphic design brain behind the summit. She's also the brand and digital media manager for the licensing program. Remember her face because she knows the answer to everything. Kimberly Frost. Come on, stand up, darling. So Kimberly is one of the industry's most innovative and talented textile designers. We met when she was at Design Tex, and it was she who created the beautiful shelter collection based on textiles from our museum. More importantly, it was she who first suggested we host an event at the museum to promote our design partnerships, thereby planting the seed for this summit. So we're very grateful for her brain and pushiness. Laura Levinson is also a key member of the Museum Design Summit team. And Laura is not just the Chief Creative Officer at Valdez Weavers. She is a fantastic event planner, organizer, and supporter. Let's see here. And a big thank you to Mary Lee Howell. Please stand. For her generosity and wise counsel on public relations. Without these talented women, several key museum colleagues, and the generosity of our 6 sponsors, we would not be here today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Okie dokie, now we're starting. And I'm not echoing. I'm echoing up here, but I'm not echoing out there?
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right, so now I will attempt to explain for you what makes the offerings of our museum and this unique state so compelling, describe our collaboration process, and show you some of the collections we have developed in partnership with our great licensees. A bit of background, and again, those of you who were at the event last night heard some of this, so bear with me. I'm a 4th generation Santa Fean and grew up visiting and loving these museums. I'm honored to represent them and proud to share the unique story they each tell about our state's history and identity. After many years of working in retail and product development, I returned to Santa Fe and proposed starting the licensing program because I wanted to help and because I knew that the material in our 4 museums was like anything I'd seen in the marketplace. What I didn't know was how challenging it would be to describe to those who had never been to Santa Fe the very unusual and international quality of our collections. It seems that when one says Santa Fe, people imagine something very different than what we who live here perceive as our identity. Let's talk about why we see ourselves differently. Before the arrival of Europeans, Indian tribes from all over the West traveled great distances to trade and socialize with neighbors at a place in northern New Mexico called Chaco Canyon. There you'll find the ruins of a complex city that was inhabited by Indians of the Southwest in 800 AD. There they have found evidence of macaw feathers, shell necklaces, and complex but understandable road systems directing traffic from all over the region. Proof that Indians came to Chaco Canyon from as far south as the tropics of Central America and as far west as the Pacific coast. This was the first of many international trade routes that would traverse the region. The next major trade route would not arrive for another 700 years. Fast forward to 1521, the year the Spanish conquered Mexico. At this time, Spain was one of the most powerful colonial empires in the world. Its dominion extended from what we know as Austria and Hungary in Europe to Latin America and Asia, including the Philippines. The red on the map shows the territories conquered by the Spanish. The arrows show the flow of goods from Europe to Mexico and from Mexico to Asia and back. In 1598, the Spanish headed north from Mexico and claimed the territories of what we now know as New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas. They named the region New Spain. In 1610, they declared Santa Fe the colonial capital of the region. This new capital was filled with Spanish nobles who needed supplies and finished goods, really nice ones. So every 2 years, massive wagon trains traveled the 1,500-mile Camino Real from Mexico City to Santa Fe, bringing the finest goods from Europe, Mexico, and the Far East. Trade Route 2 comes to Santa Fe. In 1821, Santa Fe was at long last connected to the United States. Stretching from Independence, Missouri to Santa Fe, New Mexico, the 600-mile Santa Fe Trail brought not just trappers, traders, and pioneers into the region, but new kinds of merchandise and newly emergent styles. And finally, in 1879, the Atchison-Topeka and Santa Fe Railroad arrived in New Mexico, bringing the first manufactured goods from the East. So in the span of 1,100 years, 4 major trade routes arrived in Santa Fe, and with each one came a new wave of traders and another layer of design motifs, all of which became components of the region's evolving design aesthetic. The formative influence was that of the Native Americans and their unique graphic design aesthetic. With the arrival of the Spanish, European, Asian, and Mexican design elements made up the second set of influences. Finally, with the opening of the Santa Fe Trail and the arrival of the railroad, Eastern design influences were introduced. Each new style provided a vital ingredient that contributed to the overall effect, and yet many of the ingredients remained unchanged and distinct. So with this bit of history under your belt, I hope you see Santa Fe in a different light and understand why we consider ourselves an international city rather than simply a southwestern American city. Since 800 AD, the region has been a crossroads of culture, commerce, and design. We have long been interested in and exposed to designs from around the world, and we understand the importance of respecting the cultural capital embedded in these designs. As such, it is our job to inspire you with the material and the material in our 4 museums, help you interpret it in new and respectful ways, and provide you help in developing compelling and instructive sales materials. So let's dive into the 4 museums. The Museum of New Mexico was founded in 1909, 3 years before statehood. Oops, sorry. And it's comprised of 4 distinct institutions, each one telling part of the story you just heard. The Museum of Indian Arts and Culture, the Museum of International Folk Art, the New Mexico History Museum, and the New Mexico Museum of Art. The 2 museums that are the focus of the summit and the source of most of our textile and surface designs are the Museum of International Folk Art and the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture. Sorry, you don't get to look at this very long. So the Museum of International Folk Art exists because of the generosity of one woman and her passion for life and art. Miss Florence DeBell Bartlett was born into a moneyed Chicago family, but chose adventure over convention and traveled the world exploring and collecting. Her vision for founding the museum, and I quote, reflected a practical woman's path to peace. She sought and something's missing here. She sought and eventually found a splendid way to offer an international invitation for people to see the commonality of human aspiration for beauty and by seeing to experience global kinship. In 1978, the museum opened a new wing designed by and featuring the personal collection of the renowned textile designer Alexandra Girard. Like Miss Bartlett, Girard had very clear ideas about the allure and power of folk art. Quoting one of his favorite Italian proverbs, tutto il mondo è paese, or the whole world is hometown. And in 1995, thanks to the generosity of Lloyd Coatzin, the chairman of the Neutrogena Corporation, the museum received another sizable gift of textiles and folk art. When asked why he collected, Coatzin responded, "These objects appeal to my curiosity, to the thrill of discovering the extraordinary in the ordinary." These three people were compelled to explore and gain a deeper understanding of the world's cultures through their art and traditions. The museum and countless other donors continue this good work. With objects from over 100 countries and 6 continents, the Museum of International Folk Art is the largest museum of its kind in the world. Spanning the 1600s to the present, collection highlights include furniture, ceramics, toys, folk art, and jewelry. The 26,000-piece ethnographic textile and dress collection is one of the top 10 in the world and a great design resource for us. The Museum of Indian Arts and Culture is home to a world-class collection featuring textiles, basketry, ceramics, jewelry, and beadwork of the Indians of the Southwest. Here, in New Mexico, these traditions are alive, well, and thriving. New generations of artists, fashion designers, potters, weavers, and jewelers are creating contemporary pieces inspired by their cultural legacy. Excuse me, I need some water. We love working with this collection and find great joy in sharing these stunning graphic patterns that are both ancient and extremely modern. So before I begin showing you some of our collaborations, let me speak about our process. We're constantly on the lookout for new partners, leaders in the industry, innovators using new materials, and designers who we believe will appreciate the unique design aesthetic we offer. Once we sign a license, our partners come to the museum to see the collections. Together, we create a collection pairing our design material with their given strengths and brand identity. The revenues generated from licensing return to the museum to fund exhibitions, education, and acquisition. And this is a very important point that I failed to mention earlier, but the Museum of New Mexico is a state-run museum system. So our state pays to turn on the lights and pay the salaries. The Museum of New Mexico Foundation was created in 1960 with the sole purpose of generating revenues to support everything else. So the foundation, the organization that I work for and that runs this licensing program, also does membership, runs the shops, does fundraising and development. So that's why our partnerships with you all are so important to us, and why I think an important element for you to share with your clients and your ultimate customers, because there is a whole lot of good vibe in our partnerships. So let's see. Because the material we have in our museums comes from the world's cultures, and it is our museum's mission to preserve and promote these cultures, living cultures, it is our strict policy not to allow reproductions of the designs, but instead encourage our licensees to create their own unique interpretations of this fantastic material. Here you see a photo of a Pueblo pot on the right and the interpretation by Nambe on the left. The scale is changed. You can't tell that here. The glass pot's this big, and the pot in the collection's about, I don't know, that big. So the scale is significantly changed. The interpretation is made in a completely different material, glass versus clay, and finally, the essence of the design is translated but not copied. Art and design, like math and music, are universal languages, and as such, accessible to all. Artistic traditions and designs, however, are languages unique to a given culture. Each piece is an annotated version of a culture's worldview. The materials they work with, the method of construction they employ, and the motifs they choose to pattern their art all refer back to them. Method, material, maker, and motif. These are the unique features that make the material in our museums so rare and wonderful. We hope after the summit that it is these very same 4 qualities that you as designers looking for inspiration will remember and take note of when you're developing products, training your sales staff, and developing marketing materials. By giving credit to the material, the method, the motif, and the maker, the inspiration material will retain its integrity, and so too will your interpretation. So let me now move on and show you some of the beautiful products we've created together with our licensees. Kravet is one of our very first licensees, and together we've developed 5 books. Each time we begin to work on a new book, I pester Young, and Eva to expand their interpretation of our material and to include the international quality of our museum collections in our city. We are so happy with this collection. It's beautiful. And pictured there are fabrics that are inspired by African textiles, Turkish textiles, Guatemalan, East Indian. We love it. And I believe it's launching very soon. Now? Okay. And this gives you a sense of the inspiration material on the bottom and then the finished textile on the top. And you can see the provenance of each particular piece. And again, they pulled from both museums and did a beautiful job interpreting, picking colors. Eva and Sarah Heinemann spent time. We walked through the collections. We looked at plants and dirt and buildings and rocks and to really inform the palette of the collection. And they're great partners, and we love working with them. Designtex introduced the Shelter Collection in 2011 as part of their 50th anniversary celebration. Kimberly did a beautiful job, not only using a wide variety of material to create the collection, but she presented it in a way that spoke to the material, the method, the maker, and the motif. This is the showroom at NeoCon in 2011, and then a brochure that they developed for the launch. And then we styled this at my brother's house. So you get a nice sense of the textures of the material. And then these are photos from Kimberly's sales training manual. And we love that she went to the trouble to show the evolution of the fabrics from the inspiration to the finished product. The effort expended to explain the process and the inspiration materials, again, lends integrity to the product and respects the source material. Equally, by sharing this information, sales reps are more likely to remember the product and to be excited to sell it. Again, on the left, we have, thanks to somebody who's standing in the back of the room, her name is Dr. Bobby Sundberg. She was the curator of the textile collection for many years. We worked together, and she brought this fantastic Macedonian dress collection here, and I think outside of Macedonia, we have the best Macedonian bridal dress collection in the world. And on the right, a wonderful inspiration from the basketry at the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture. Wolf Gordon, another one of our great partners. Again, you see beautifully styled sales material on the top, the finished product, and underneath the inspiration material, going from your left to my right. That's African Adiri cloth. In the middle is one little slice of a 17 silk on silk samplers that are all sewn together that were given to Empress Carlotta of Mexico's lady-in-waiting when she decided she'd had enough of working for the Empress and joined the convent. And on the right, these are end-to-belly beaded front aprons for the women. They have front and back. Is that right, Bobby? And then just some great collateral material that they developed, again, showing the breadth of material, windows into the museum. And Jaipur is another one of our great partners, developing handmade rugs and pillows based on the collections at the Museum of International Folk Art. Again, the finished products on the left, and on the right you can see the inspiration. Again, adaptation, not reproduction. Sections of the kente cloth and sections of the Hungarian embroidery. These are photos of 2 rugs, and you can see again the diversity of inspiration, a section of a sashiko coat on the bottom there, and then a section of a Vietnamese textile fragment. The designers did a wonderful job identifying wools and weaving techniques to convey the hand-stitched quality of the sashiko. And then when we introduced this collection, Asha gave me a full hour to work with her sales team, explaining the history of the museum, the cultural background of the pieces that inspired the collection. And we developed these hang tags that were on every single rug, and I believe are on the back of the rugs when the consumer receives them. And they explain our collaboration, re-envisioning craft and cultural traditions of the world's artisans with a modern eye. And again, it referenced the commitment that our 2 cultural institutions have to handmade product and to supporting the arts. So the Indian Advisory Panel is comprised of members of each of New Mexico's 19 Indian pueblos, the Navajo Nation and the Hopi. Whenever we are working with product based on Native American material, we work with the Indian Advisory Panel. Is Ulysses here? Yes. All right, we have one of our friends from IAP here. That's Ulysses Reed. So what we do is we start by showing which pieces our licensees have been attracted to in the collections and taken photographs of. And we show them those because there are sometimes things that our gringo eyes miss that are actually quite sacred and inappropriate for development. So the IAP will cull the material and say, okay, great, go ahead, you can start. And then we also give them a kind of a concept sketch about what we're going to develop, what it looks like, what the material might be like. Again, they review it. They give us the opportunity to amend it, delete culturally inappropriate material, and then help us provide alternatives with our licensees. And then we move to the design process, sharing the designs of the final product. And if there are no objections or suggested changes, we move to production. When we were working with Nambe on this, the IAP was very involved and pointed out something on the proposed design that they believe should be changed. The pot on the right has a symbol that appears and references rain clouds. The IAP was not comfortable with that, so they asked us to modify and simplify the design. So you can see, again, on the left, the scale is also very different. It's a beautiful interpretation that's very contemporary and harkens back, but keeps that culturally sensitive material private. Let's see, where am I? So the IAP is an active and supportive partner. They are very much involved, and we're happy for their input because it ensures that we bring appropriate product to market and that we do not offend our Native community. The Phillips Collection is one of many other partners that have done a beautiful job interpreting the graphic qualities of the Pueblo pottery into contemporary product, again, with the IAP's involvement. The pieces on the left were designed by Mimi Robinson, an ATA designer, ATA Artisans, with pottery for inspiration, but first interpreted in black and white and later in color. This collection was handmade in Peru, working with artisans who have a long-lived ceramic tradition. We like developing retail partnerships. They take a lot of time, but we like doing them. First, you have to find the right partner, and then we work through the development and approval process. West Elm was great to work with. The lead designer, Jonathan Orr, came out here and spent 3 days in the collections at both museums because we weren't entirely certain what they wanted to develop. They had a brief about this big. So at the end, they decided they really wanted to focus just on the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture because of the ability to really represent, bring to market a very graphic and contemporary finished product. So what they chose to focus on were textile and pottery designs, again, using details, never the whole piece. So they developed this beautiful collection of rugs. The designs were presented to the IAP. Most all were approved, a few were dropped, and 2 were modified. We repeated the same process for each rug, writing the catalog copy, naming the rugs, working on the website copy, and the promotion material. Got it. There's a group of curators that we work with over at MIAC and the IAP, and it was a really fun and instructive process, all about constructing language. Again, making sure that we were really talking about the material and the finished goods in the right way. And then, let's see, where am I? Anyways, in the end, as you can see here, we also came back to our goal of talking about the method, material, motif, and maker. In 2003, we developed a complete lifestyle collection for the retailer Marshall Fields. We had 8 partners, and we worked with 3 museums. And it was a lot of work, but it was an enormous amount of fun and a huge success. Again, the team came, the whole Marshall Fields people came out on their jet and wandered around for days, and we identified pieces in the museum. We worked on the development both with the retailers and the museum staff, again, to ensure that we were interpreting the material in the right way. And each and every piece had a hang tag or corresponding bit of sales information, allowing the customer to enjoy learning about and owning the piece, and again, lending authenticity and integrity to the collection. So here are some of our other partners, past and present. So there you have it, a very quick explanation of our museums, the collections, our licensing and design program. We're proud of our museums and our collaborations and look forward to developing more beautiful product, both with our current licensees and with some of you here today. Because of the internet, the world is at your fingertips, and inspiration material of all kinds available to you with the click of a mouse. No strings attached, no requirements to credit your source. The resulting product may be beautiful, but it is anonymous and perhaps even a bit soulless, and worse yet, even culturally inappropriate. Study after study shows that integrity, authenticity, and humanity are the qualities that today's consumers want in the products they buy and the experiences they seek. In partnering with us, telling the story about the makers of the material that inspired your product is but one way to reintroduce humanity and integrity back into the process. I'm sure the speakers that follow will describe other ways. Thanks.